Of course. Here's a 500-word story for you based on that topic. Margaret had always been the social butterfly of her neighborhood. Birthday parties, church gatherings, afternoon teas. She never missed a chance to visit friends and family. But now, at 68, Margaret found herself declining more invitations than she accepted. At first, she thought it was just fatigue, but as time passed, she realized there were deeper reasons behind her withdrawal. Reasons many people over 65 quietly experience but rarely talk about. The first truth Margaret faced was energy. Her body didn't bounce back the way it used to after long days. A simple afternoon out could leave her exhausted for 2 days. She loved her friends dearly, but found herself rationing her energy carefully, choosing solitude over social obligations more often. Second was mobility. Margaret's knees had started aching, making travel more of a chore than a joy. She once loved driving across town to visit an old friend or to run errands, but now even a 30-minute trip felt daunting. Third came feeling like a burden. Margaret hated the idea of needing special arrangements, a chair without stairs to climb, an easy parking spot, or a friend who understood she might have to leave early. She never wanted to be the reason anyone had to adjust their plans, so she stayed home instead. The fourth truth was social dynamics shifting. Some friends had moved away, others had passed on, and some simply grew apart as life stages changed. Inviting herself into newer circles or family gatherings where she didn't feel fully understood or needed was emotionally exhausting. Fifth was the financial side. While Margaret was comfortable, she was careful. Gas prices, meals out, little gifts for hosts, they all added up. She didn't want to admit that sometimes declining an invitation was simply about protecting her budget. Finally, there was emotional energy. Margaret had lived through losses, heartbreaks, and hardships. Some days, putting on a cheerful face felt impossible. She preferred the quiet company of her books, her garden, and her memories to forcing a smile in noisy rooms. Yet, despite all these truths, Margaret wasn't unhappy. She realized that withdrawing wasn't about giving up. It was about choosing peace, comfort, and authenticity. She found joy in smaller, deeper connections. A heartfelt phone call, a letter from an old friend, a quiet lunch with someone who truly understood. Margaret's story isn't unique. Many over 65 slowly step back from social routines, not because they don't care, but because their needs, bodies, and priorities have shifted. Recognizing these 6 truths helps to remove the guilt and sadness often associated with slowing down. It's not isolation, it's a different, often more meaningful way of connecting on their own terms. Would you also like a quick 2-sentence voiceover summary of this story? I can make it into an audio clip if you want. Absolutely. Here's an additional 500-word paragraph that continues and deepens the story. Margaret soon discovered that redefining connection was not only necessary, but also liberating. Instead of feeling obligated to maintain every old friendship or attend every event, she began curating her social world with intention. She reached out to a handful of friends who truly mattered, those who offered understanding and warmth without expectation or judgment. Coffee dates turned into slow, easy conversations at home. Instead of driving across town, Margaret embraced technology, learning to video chat with distant family members and rekindling old friendships through handwritten letters. She realized that physical presence wasn't the only way to stay close to others. It was the quality of the interaction, not the quantity, that counted now. Margaret also found unexpected companionship in her local library's book club, where many members were facing the same life transitions she was. They laughed about their creaky knees, shared wisdom about managing changing family dynamics, and offered each other the kind of deep listening that's often hard to find. Her garden became a sacred space where neighbors would sometimes wander by, drawn to the colors and scents, staying to chat for a few minutes at the gate. These spontaneous, pressure-free moments brought Margaret more genuine happiness than any crowded party ever could. She also found peace in solitude, in slow mornings with tea, journaling her memories, and listening to music that carried her through decades of her life. Margaret understood now that pulling back from constant visiting wasn't about loneliness or defeat. It was about honoring her stage of life with grace and self-respect. There was freedom in choosing peace over obligation, stillness over noise, and authenticity over appearances. By accepting the 6 eye-opening truths about energy, mobility, feeling like a burden, shifting social dynamics, financial considerations, and emotional energy, Margaret gave herself permission to live her later years with dignity and intention. It was a profound shift in mindset, from clinging to the busyness of the past to embracing the richness of a quieter, deeper present. And when she did visit, when she did pick up the phone or join a gathering, it wasn't from guilt or habit. It was from genuine joy, a choice, not a duty. Margaret's world grew smaller, yes, but it also grew deeper, richer, and more meaningful. In a society that often fears aging, Margaret became a quiet example that stepping back doesn't mean fading away. It can mean stepping into a truer, more beautiful way of living, one rooted in real connection, intentional joy, and profound self-understanding. Would you also like a strong final paragraph, maybe about 200 words, to wrap the whole piece together into a complete story? It would make it really powerful if you plan to publish or post it. Of course, here's a final 200-word paragraph to wrap up the story. Margaret's journey showed that aging gracefully isn't about holding on to every piece of the past. It's about thoughtfully choosing what to carry forward. She learned that true connection isn't measured by the number of visits or events attended, but by the authenticity and warmth shared in each encounter. Instead of feeling guilty for the invitations she declined or the gatherings she missed, she took pride in building a life that honored her needs and energy. Her days became filled with small joys. The sun warming her face in the garden, a heartfelt letter arriving in the mail, a deep conversation with a friend who truly listened. Margaret embraced this quieter chapter, not with sadness, but with a sense of profound gratitude. She understood that stepping back wasn't an ending. It was an evolution, a new way of living with intention and peace. For those over 65 facing the same feelings, Margaret's story is a reminder. You aren't withdrawing from life. You're simply choosing a life that better fits who you are now. Would you also like me to put together a quick 2-sentence voiceover version you could use if you want to share it in audio? It could sound really nice.